From the California State Senate, this is Senate Spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this segment of Senate Spotlight, where we discuss legislative priorities, policy, and other related issues with members of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green, and our guest this time around is Senator Ben Allen. He's a freshman senator, 26th Senate District down in beautiful Southern California. He is also the chair of the Senate Elections Committee. Welcome, Senator. Glad to have you here.
So happy to be here.
Good to see you. And I don't mean to gush, but just looking at your portfolio, you have an extraordinary background. I mean, you are a former school board member, school board president. You're an environmental activist. You have a legal international human rights portfolio. You have 3 degrees. You are bilingual. On behalf of your fellow legislators, where have you been all of our lives?
Well, I've had a lot of great experiences, and this is a wonderful new experience for me, and I'm enjoying it a great deal so far. And it's been fun pulling together all those experiences and things that I've been through in other iterations into this new experience. So.
Well, how's that been? I mean, you come here as a freshman senator, not having had statewide political experience yet. So what is that perspective, if you will, from looking at things from the grass tops, if you will, from the legislative perspective, and realizing how much that affects the grassroots?
Oh, having served on the local level is incredibly helpful because it makes me think a lot about how the work that we do here impacts people on the local level. You know, it makes you think twice sometimes before pushing what may seem like a great idea, but that you may end up getting really messed up in terms of implementation on the ground. I did serve, when I was at law school, I served as the student member of the University of California's Board of Regents. So I got the chance to see statewide policymaking from that perspective, from a public higher education board. But this is a whole new kettle of fish. I mean, the range of issues you get to work on, the diversity of issues. It's fascinating. Sacramento and California are really at the cutting edge of national policy. Unfortunately, Washington has become kind of a cesspool of partisanship and gridlock, and I think there's some really interesting opportunities and exciting things to get to work on here on a wide variety of policy areas.
Well, let's talk about some of those opportunities, that kettle of fish. Some of it's part of your agenda, and some of it has been kind of thrust on you by just virtue of the headlines. Let's talk in particular, I know an issue that you are involved in as we speak, the issue of the measles and vaccination debate here in California. What started at Disneyland at the New Year has mushroomed into something bigger with these hundreds and hundreds of measles cases, brought the focus to the debate over the importance of vaccinations, having kids vaccinated, and then the right not to, the personal beliefs and the health concerns. You and Senator Pan, your colleague, who is a pediatrician, have made national, actually international news already in just the last couple of weeks with the plans to co-author a bill that requires school children to be vaccinated and for their parents not to be able to opt out with the personal choice issues. You're a former school board member, so you've seen it firsthand on the ground. More and more people are doing that. Some say that we've become a victim of our success in terms of just the safety and health of kids who have been vaccinated. You want to remove that choice and option. Tell us about the bill and why.
Well, let me just clarify. There are 3 different ways that people can currently get out of getting a vaccine to send their kid to school. There's a religious beliefs exemption that was created by the governor as part of a signing message. There's the personal beliefs exemption, and then there's medical exemptions. And we're only looking at the personal beliefs exemption in our bill. So there's still going to be some flexibility elsewhere. Ultimately, as you say, we have let our vaccination rates drop too low. That's why we're seeing this outbreak. We're looking to tighten up the rules to get those vaccination rates up a bit higher so that we can protect public health. Ultimately, there's a lot of people who can't get a vaccine for whatever reason. There may be medical reasons, babies under 1, for example. We want to make sure that mothers who want to take their baby out to the store, out to the park, are not going to have to be in fear that they may contract measles or whooping cough or some other terrible disease just because so many people have decided not to vaccinate. I think ultimately a lot of us have forgotten how dangerous the world is out there. I mean, my father had polio, debilitating disease. You know, even today, every single day around the world, 400 people die of measles every day because so many people are not vaccinated and in other parts of the world.
And if you go to a cemetery that's 150 years old and you look at all the grave sites for kids, you realize how back in the 1800s, early even part of the 20th century, young people were victimized by whooping cough and measles and everything.
Tuberculosis and polio and rubella. I mean, the list goes on and on. Half of Europe was wiped out by the bubonic plague back during the Middle Ages. So, our bodies are not as secure as a lot of people think. And we've developed the tools, we've developed the science to protect ourselves. And this is why we've come to propose this bill, so we can up those vaccination rates, protect public health, and get us back to an even keel.
Now, I know Senator Pan had authored a bill back when he was in the Assembly that required parents who wanted to opt out to seek medical doctor counsel before they were allowed to have their children opt out from the vaccinations. According to him, the stats are actually on the rise.
Yes, they are.
And the incidences of these cases are actually on the decline. And notwithstanding the controversy and kind of the rip from the headlines perspective of all this the last couple of months, is there a need for this still?
Well, the cases haven't declined. The number of the percentage of people who are vaccinated has certainly risen. That's true. But as we've seen, there's been outbreaks, pretty bad outbreaks this year. So I think the sense is that while Senator Pan's legislation was a very good step in the right direction, we need to take it further because clearly these outbreaks have shown that we don't have enough rules in place to protect public health.
How are the schools handling this? I know a lot of them are telling students, if you're not vaccinated, don't come.
Yeah.
And even the teachers are exposed. I mean, from what you've heard since the bill idea has come up, what's been the
schools are struggling to find solutions to this. Sometimes they don't have the tools that they need. And part of what brings me to this issue is having been a school board member living in an area where we had a relatively high number of people who weren't vaccinating and just realizing how much at risk our broader population was. And so that's what brought me to this story, because I realized how few tools there were for school districts to take proactive steps to protect their students. Now my own home school district, for example, our baseball coach at Santa Monica High School came down with the measles. There was an outbreak at our infant and toddler center. We had to shut that operation down. We're now having, once there has been an outbreak, you have some things you can do to protect the broader population. But schools are struggling. Schools are working with local public health officials to try to implement a set of procedures that will protect their students. Ultimately, we're doing everything we can to contain the outbreak, and I think there's a lot of really hardworking public health officials on the ground, both in the counties and in the school districts, who've been doing really good work making sure we contain this outbreak.
Well, it's been interesting, kind of the tug of war and the way the dividing line has come along from those folks who have their children vaccinated, definitely, deliberately see the health issues involved. And then there's the other side, the folks that are genuinely concerned about what those vaccinations mean and the health issues there. And you kind of understand certain people. I mean, they look at, what was it, the PSA test for prostates. Everybody was encouraged to go get a PSA test. And then doctors, the medical community said, well, not necessarily a key indicator of prostates. Mammograms. Go out and get a mammogram, early prevention, early exposure or diagnosis of breast cancer. Then they come out and say, well, maybe not necessarily the right thing, could lead to a false positive. People out there are concerned. They get distrustful of the medical community, even politicians saying these things. Even Rand Paul, who's a senator, has come out and said, hey, I'm a little concerned about this. I kind of discouraged my kids from getting vaccinated. What do you say to those kind of things, those concerns that people have that drive this?
Well, to be fair, Rand Paul did retract his statement, and he did say that he has vaccinated his kids. I think he was bringing up some civil liberties concerns that I think, that I share, by the way. I think ultimately the issue becomes, akin to the fact that we've changed the rules on smoking in a bar. That yes, we believe very strongly in civil liberties, but when my own personal decisions start to impact your health or your kid's health, your kid's vulnerability, then that's a place where government has a role to come step in and take measures to protect the broader public health. There certainly are some concerns out there. I will say, if you look at the difference between the implications associated with vaccines and the implications associated with the diseases that the vaccines prevent the spread of, there's just orders of magnitude of difference. if you know, and I think once again, it's important that we learn from history and we talk to some folks from some of the older generations about the impact of let's say measles. I mean, we had 100 people dying every year in the United States of measles very recently. We had people who, I've got my parents' friends who had, the vast majority of people got measles. They were fine afterwards. However, lots and lots of people from my parents' generation have friends who became deaf, became debilitated, ended up dying because of the fact that they got measles, and the measles ends up having terrible complications for people if things go wrong. And so, it's easy for us to forget what it was like before we had broad-based vaccination. And ultimately, there was a lot of suffering that was out there. It wasn't for everyone, and certainly lots of people got the measles and then got over it. But there were a lot of tragic cases as well. Far fewer than any of far more than any of the sort of complications that are alleged to be connected to vaccines. Now, of course, we need to take some. We're looking at measures to, what can we do to make sure we're doing everything we can to make vaccines more safe. Lots and lots of parents are coming up with alternative vaccination routines for their kids. That's totally fine. That's not impacted by our bill at all. And we will continue. One thing I will have to mention, Senator Pavley pushed a bill that was signed into law that basically made sure that there was no mercury present.
Right, I remember that 10 years ago. She
was
was advocating on that. Yes,
right,
yeah.
for pregnant women and kids under 3. Maybe we ought to expand that. That's something I'm looking into. So, there are things that can be done, but ultimately, if you weigh the cost-benefit analysis associated with vaccines and the benefits and the concerns associated with them, there really is no comparison.
And I understand that this bill, that this idea really is sort of a catalyst for the discussion, which obviously is happening.
Which is a
so
good
that's
thing.
a good thing. Yeah,
it's a good thing.
I know there's so many more things we can talk about. We got a couple more minutes, and I know you didn't come to Sacramento on the platform exclusively of vaccinations and measles. Let's talk about the port strike. As we speak, it's a very evolving issue. Even as we speak, things could change by the time somebody were to see this in the next couple of days. The Obama administration's meeting with both sides has a tremendous impact on California economically, not to mention the country and the world. And that's what really strikes me, is just how intricate all of this is, this whole connection between the suppliers and the traders and the shippers. And the minute something goes awry, the dominoes start to fall, and it affects everybody. Give us your reflections on that.
I'm desperately concerned about this issue. It impacts the broader California economy, particularly my district, where we've got lots of small businesses and workers and shippers and people in trade and business. People who've never called to ask me about a political issue are now writing me and raising concerns because of how much they're worried about their supply chain and their bottom line. I've heard one estimate that suggests that the current shutdown on the West Coast is costing the U.S. economy $2 billion a day. So we desperately have to get a handle on this. I'm very encouraged to see the administration finally stepping in. It took a lot of pressure from people locally and in Washington as well, but I'm glad. I think it's a real good, important step in the right direction. I mean, ultimately, my understanding of the dispute is that they've come pretty close, and they're pretty close to reaching an agreement, but there's a couple key sticking points that still seem to be leading to a situation where they're not able to come to an accord. I'm desperately concerned about the implications. I think a lot of shipping companies and folks are starting to look at alternatives. They're looking at Mexico. They're looking at sending more of their the shipping to the East Coast. They're looking to other alternatives that involve avoiding the port. And so I'm really concerned that the parties may end up really impacting the long-term economic vitality of the port, which has, of course, real deep implications for the entire Los Angeles and indeed the entire California economy and community. So. I sent a letter to both the ILWU, the union there, and the Pacific Maritime Association that is on the management side, asking them to do whatever they can to get this dispute resolved. I'm very hopeful that the Secretary of Labor will really help to drive a sense of urgency into these negotiations and bring them to a resolution.
Great. So much more I could ask you on that, but we'll try to fit in one more subject here before we bail out. You are chair of the Senate Elections Committee. You and your colleague in the Assembly Elections Committee having a oversight hearing coming up to talk about voter turnout in 2014, or lack of, particularly in Los Angeles. 2014 was called the Year of the Grandparents in terms of voting. Historically very bad for democracy. It was still the older non-ethnic, affluent folks that are going out to vote, and the rest, the younger kids. One pundit had said that more 18-year-olds were more likely to get arrested last year than go to the ballot box. That's a quote.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with this? What has gone wrong for this push for voting access, for voting rights? Why are we seeing these dismal numbers, and particularly in context of elections that are coming up in LA soon?
Yeah,
give us some perspective.
Great question. And I will say, even though things were bad statewide, in fact nationally, they were particularly bad in California.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you a little number to make you think about this. State of California on the November 14 elections, the voter turnout statewide was 42%.
Mm-hmm.
In Sierra County, up in the mountains, the voter turnout was 73%. Now, the exact same day, same ballot, same issues, same candidates, same propositions, in LA County was 31%. So LA County was a full 11 points below the already pretty bad statewide average. Now, what is it about LA County? Now, this is what we're going to be looking at this hearing. We're going to be digging down deep. We're going to be talking to the registrar recorder from LA County. Some of the big concerns seem to center around vote by mail and what LA County, why it was that LA County seems to have rolled out the vote by mail program much more slowly than other counties. We're going to be getting to the bottom of that, trying to understand some more of the challenges. There's some tweaks I think that can be made to the rules. We're going to be looking at a lot of different factors, and we've got a wonderful list of folks who have already, who have signed on to testify at our hearing. Everyone from the Secretary of State and the Registrar Recorder to some professors, some folks from other counties who've had better kind of models and better outcomes in their voter turnout, and then a number of people who are involved with elections reform and various ethnic groups. And so I'm looking forward to this hearing.
It should be great. Is poverty an issue in this that affects voter turnout? I mean, we are the richest and poorest state at the same time, and some of those communities that we want to get out to vote don't necessarily have the access or the information about it.
I mean, for better or for worse, poverty is at the heart of so many of California's policy challenges, and elections are certainly no exception to that.
All right, we are out of time. So much more I could talk about, which is my way to invite you back.
I look forward to it.
Have some other discussion on this and other things. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Welcome to the legislature.
Thank you.
We'll bring you back again. Senator Ben Allen from Southern California. He is our guest, chair of the Senate Elections Committee, and that wraps it up for this edition of Senate Spotlight. Join us next time around as we discuss important legislative issues and policies with the newsmakers and newsbreakers of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Senate Spotlight.